is NFL draft season. We have prospects declaring for the 2025 NFL draft. Deone Walker, buy or sell, that this was the right decision. We're going to talk about that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everyday. As you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keith, talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft DP. Today's show, buy or sell, man. We're talking about early declarations, right? Some of these guys coming out there declaring for the NFL draft. It is popping off on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere else, right? We're going to talk about Deone Walker, right? Should he come out, buy or sell where he is? Mason Taylor, the son of the Hall of Fame edge rusher. Jason Taylor, right, for LSU, a prospect that is rising quickly. Was it a good decision for him to come out this year, or should he have went back and tried to run it back one more time and be tight end one? And then Shamar Stewart, the hybrid edge rusher from Texas A&M. Seems like they consistently put out these guys 6'4", 6'5", 280 pounds, can play edge rusher, can play defensive tackle for your DP. Let's jump into Deone Walker, man. We haven't talked about him in a while. Let's have this Deone Walker conversation.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Deone Walker, guys, what was he? I think they said, I think it's our guy Jordan Reed said he measured in at Kentucky at 6'7", actually. 6'6", 6'7", 340, 50-pound, just massive human being for the Kentucky Wildcats. And the guy coming into the season, Keith, that everyone was excited about, to be that big, that size, the arm length, athleticism, all that good stuff. And we saw what he was able to do from a pass rush standpoint last year. Well, I'm going to set the table from what it looks like this year. In 2024, he has a pass rush win rate of 9.1%. He has 4 sacks on the season, 0 QB hits, 17 hurries. On true dropback sets, 2 of his 4 sacks have come on true dropback sets. 8 of his 17 hurries have come on those. And when he's got to get a chance to pin his ears back, his pass rush win rate only went up to 10.3. 6'6", 345, 350. Keith, buy or sell? Was this the right decision from what looks like statistically a down year for Deone Walker? Was this the right decision? Do you buy or sell? He should have entered the 2025 NFL draft after a season where he had 8 sacks, 4 QB hits, and 39, almost 40 pressures last year.
DP, so this is the thing. I'm buying it, right? But you know, sometimes you go to the grocery store, right? And they tell you, right, like maybe certain products, you know, high in sugar, not great for you, right? But you still buy it, right? You still buy into it. So I'm buying it, but I'm not buying the fact that I think that it's a great buy, right? And what I'm saying is that for Deone Walker's sake, I don't know if there was going to be area for him to improve, right? Because I think the flaws that he had last year coming into this year didn't necessarily improve upon them, right? And last year, I believe he was a double-digit sack guy, right, as far as numbers. And that's why we always talk about on this podcast, right? Production in terms of numbers, you have to look at the process, right? You want to look at process over production, because the production as far as numbers and box scores can go up and down depending on situations, right? And how do they actually go about getting these sacks? So I look at Deone Walker and I say, I'm buying the fact that he declares, but we had this conversation. I think we were one of the first people to say, hey, with Deone Walker, we have a couple concerns about some of his play, right? Or certain things that he needs to improve on, to where y'all putting him as a top 10 pick. We didn't necessarily feel like that, right? And so I'm saying I'm buying him coming into the draft because I don't think there was room for him to necessarily improve in a sense, but I'm not all the way in on him being a first round or a second round. Like I'm probably going more third or fourth round as a prospect.
No, I'm with you, kid. I think I'm reluctantly buying as well. There were times watching the tape of Deone, I saw him in positions that I'm like, why is he at 5 tech? Like, you know what I mean? Why is he all the way on the outside? Don't get me wrong. I've seen reps where he did rush the passer from an edge rush position, from a stand-up 2-point stance, and he won. And I'm like, you shouldn't be able to do that at your size. Like, that shouldn't be able to happen. But it's like, I don't want him living out there. Like, I want him as like a 3 tech, 2-eye, even some 1, right? Especially on pass rush situations. And it's just, for me, I buy reluctantly because I've seen flashes. Because my main thing with him, Keith, is that I felt like he was way too much of a finesse player for to be so big and physical.
And that's the part I have concern with, that I know didn't get improved upon, right, year over year.
Yeah, it's just I see what you turn on the tape, and it's like you see players where, of course, the pass rush stuff is always going to be there, but it's like the run game stuff, or just like what we saw from Jordan Davis, from T'Vondre Sweat. You remember the rep against our guy, I think it was Bo Limmer at the Senior Bowl last year, where like T'Vondre Sweat just put him on his back, and it's like that is just unbridled strength. And it's like, but you watch T'Vondre Sweat line up play after play and one-on-one after one-on-one, and you saw a guy who didn't want to be blocked. Like, he was just that was the mindset he played with. Then you look at him as a rookie, and he's one of the best defenders on the Tennessee Titans roster right now. Yep. He's an impact player. That mentality, like, I want to see that from Deone. You're 6'6", 345. I need to see you play like it. I want to see you toss smaller interior linemen out of your path and make a play in the run game. I want to see you add that power club, the hump maneuver, those power rush moves as a run defender, and just create immediate surge and penetration in the backfield. He's too big. He's too gifted, too talented. And I just feel like and again, Keith, I've seen it with some players. They're just in the wrong, they're on the wrong team, the wrong defensive concepts, and the wrong defensive system as a prospect. I've even talked to guys like, yeah, man, this scheme really didn't fit me, but I didn't want to go in the transfer portal. I just stayed loyal. I just stayed home, just grinded it out, right? Then they get to the league, and he's like, okay, now you're in a scheme that fits you. And it's like, oh, this is what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like, this is like the Big 12 is known for that. They'll take 310-pound like defensive tackles and play them on the edge. And then what was it? I'm blanking on his name. He plays for the Jets, their first round pick about 2 years ago. The edge rusher. Will McDonald.
Yeah.
Like, remember watching him in the Big Ten, and they would have him at like 5 tech, 4-eye, stuff like that. Like, wait, why is he reduced inside when he's like 230 pounds as an edge rusher? Why aren't we rushing him off the edge? So yeah, I do believe that the Kentucky situation, I think he could be a better pro, but I'm buying reluctantly because it is a little, I walk away from his tape wanting more power, more physicality, just more. I like the attitude that I'm not going to be blocked. Like, not saying that you disrespect your opponent, but when you're that big and that gifted, Keith, I want you breaking the huddle, walking to the line of scrimmage, and looking that guy straight in the eye and say, you will not block me. Like, it's not happening today. One-on-one, you better talk trash to the center. You better double team me. I'm about to get him every single snap, and then play like it. It's just too many peaks and valleys with his game right now to where I'm with you. I don't think he's going to go fourth round. I think somebody's going to buy in day 2. You know what I mean? Somebody's going to buy in on them on day 2, but I definitely don't value him right now as a first-round pick just because of the peaks and valleys. They're too inconsistent for me.
Yeah, I agree with that, DP. Let's have a fun conversation, man. Coming up next, we talked about how good this tight end class. You know why? Because it's guys like Mason Taylor, right? Declared for the NFL draft. Let's have a conversation about Mason Taylor, whether we buying or selling high on him, right? We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 200 times your money on PrizePicks. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. This week on Prize Picks, I am looking at Bo Nix for more than 236.5 passing yards versus the Indianapolis Colts, while I have Kirk Cousins at less than 242.5 passing yards versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Download the app today. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite. And right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with the promo code NFL. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience. And the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites, from legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more. Save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code NFL. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code NFL. Minimum purchase may apply. Mason Taylor, son of Hall of Fame edge rusher Jason Taylor, 6'5", 255 pounds, declared for the 2025 NFL Draft, Keith. Declared for the draft, leaving LSU, and on the season, 79 targets, 55 receptions, averaged about 10 yards per catch, only had two receiving touchdowns, which is weird. You would assume that they would have gotten the ball, especially in the low red zone, gotten this big body athlete going. He had 546 yards receiving. And even last year, definitely a tick up last year, but even he's like a walking first down. He's averaged over his career for 3 years. He's averaged around 10 yards per catch. So it's like, hey, if we throw the ball to Mason Taylor, it's probably going to end in a first down. He's averaging about 10 yards, a little over 10 yards per catch. Keith, are you buying or selling him declaring for the NFL Draft, and especially in this loaded tight end group?
DP, last segment, we talked Deone Walker, right? And I said I was buying, right? And it was kind of I had to buy, right? Or I was buying without knowing that I felt good about it. DP, I'm walking in the store, I'm buying this, and I'm feeling happy about it. Matter of fact, I'm buying, and as soon as I walk out the store, I'm calling people on the phone and tell them what I just bought, DP. I like Mason Taylor a lot, right? And I think the last time we really went in depth with him was probably during the summer. And I know I mentioned him early on during the season, but I think what I mentioned then people started to see now, because now he was a feature part, right? Last year, he was third behind Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, right? Which is understandable at the end of the day, right? But this year, it's him, right? Like, he was probably the most consistent offensive weapon, or I like Kyron Lacy, right? But I think he was more consistent as far as positional contributions, just in the totality of the LSU offense. I like Mason Taylor a lot, and I'm buying in on him. I think this is a guy that could he sneak to the back end of the second round, right? When you talk about just being an overall prospect, he plays inline, he plays slot, he's good run after the catch. He's just one of those utility tight ends that does everything well. And I think of a team like the Washington Commanders, and what's our guy that came from Kansas State? And because I always compared him to Kyle Juszczyk, right? And I'm like, hey, Ben Sinnott. And they drafted Ben Sinnott, right, to kind of play that Kyle Juszczyk role. But I think he's more of the actual tight end that they will want, right? And then you can kind of have a hybrid situation. I think of teams like the Baltimore Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Like, I think you talk about throwing out names like Zach Ertz or something like that. I think he can easily step in for players like that, who are aging veterans, and then be like, you know what, this guy can hit the ground running. I'm expecting Mason Taylor to hit the ground running in the NFL because of his play, but also obviously his father. He's been around the NFL. He knows what it's about. He's a professional. He his father, right? And you would have to believe that, watched this film and said, "You ready for the big leagues, big dog?"
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why I'm buying into Mason Taylor.
Yeah, I'm buying in on him as well. Everything you just said, Keith. I mean, when you have this type of physical profile, 6'5", 255, when you have the long arms, the catch radius, the speed and explosiveness and the burst after the catch, like those things matter in the NFL. And you talk about, even with, like, you talking about Benson Knott, I do think Benson Knott is going to be more of that. I think he's going to turn into that Trey McBride type of tight end, learning from Zach Ertz. But I still wouldn't turn down getting a Mason Taylor, because that offense still needs pass catchers. Like you can't just keep throwing to Terry McLaurin all the time. Like you need better guys. And then one thing we know that he's a willing blocker. So you got two young guys who can come out in 12. You can run the ball because both of them are going to really not gonna say dominate the point of attack, but they're gonna be really good at the point of attack in the run game. That they can give you the run after catch. You can go to some overload, heavy side, set some strong side, two tights on the one side. You can really, especially with a Jaden Daniels, if you're the Commanders and you drafted a Mason Taylor to go with a Benson Knott, then you can start really getting creative with Benson Knott. Like I said, like a Kyle Juszczyk, where you go into some the King and Queen pistol sets where you got Jaden and whoever's the running back is at the time in the backfield, and you got Benson Knott as the H-back, flanking them, lead blocking, H-back dive, right? The triple option, read option. You can hand Benson Knott the football. Like, it's just, you can do different things to give these defenses in the NFC East and NFC period just different looks. And I just think of the fact of, as talented as this tight end class is, like, I have no problem with him coming out. Like, because I also think he's going to have a very strong combine. Whereas, like, as a tight end at 6'5", 255, you go out there and run 4.55, 4.6, no worse than that. Jump well, catch well, just look smooth and fluid and agile, and show the straight line speed. Yeah, like, this is a guy you think about, just teams that need to upgrade the tight end position. Like, I go back to Carolina. Yes, you got your Jatavian Sanders, who, heck, I thought he was going to be out longer than he was because of that neck injury, but I think he played last week.
That's a good spot, DP, that Carolina conversation. I didn't think about that. That's a real good spot. And he's one of those guys that I feel like will work well with Bryce Young, because Bryce Young, and I know people say, oh, if he's high IQ, why he's not doing stuff in the NFL? But we know that Bryce is a high IQ player, right? Like, he's one of those guys that when he's clicking on all cylinders is because he's seeing things, and he's one of those just cerebral guys, right? Like, just playing. And we're seeing it now with Carolina, like some of the stuff this past week with Philly, right? It's like him like getting pressure and just knowing, like, there go the running back. I know he's over there, right? Yeah. And Mason Taylor is one of those guys I feel like can be on the same page with him. You want to know a sneaky spot that I feel like for Mason Taylor? And as this team turns over to becoming younger, they drafted 2 wide receivers last year, right, to replace a couple guys. The San Francisco 49ers would be an interesting spot, right? And George Kittle, obviously, he's still playing good football, but at some point, you think in the next 2 to 3 years, they have to pass the baton tight end wise. That would be a sneaky good spot for him to go and kind of learn and be a part, play tight end too for a couple years, and then be the guy down there in San Fran. I think that'll be a fun spot.
I like that. I like that a lot. You know what I mean? Because you turn the page to the youth movement.
Ricky Pearsall, all of them, right? You got Jacob Cowan, Ricky Pearsall. Now you got Mason Taylor, right?
You got Jordan Mason, the running back. You know what I mean? Like
Isaac Garendo.
I'd like that a lot, kid. Another team that I think could be a good spot for him. Two, honestly, the Denver Broncos, because they need a tight end bad. The Denver Broncos, especially because they're like right now, there's a lot of buzz about Denver might be one of the teams that's linked to Ashton Genty if he falls in round 1, and kind of replacing Javonte Williams.
Keep him out in that area, right?
Right, like he's perfectly fine running the cold. He's like got that muscle hamster type of build, that Doug Martin type of build, and Doug Martin went to Boise State as well. If they were to, I'm not like if they were, because they do need tight end, they need they need to upgrade wide receiver, stuff like that. But if they were to go Ashton Genty round 1, and then go Mason Taylor round 2, like that's how you help a Bolden, because as we've seen even with like CJ Stroud, right? Like the NFL, it takes an off season for NFL DCs to figure out what makes you click. All right, what do you like? What plays, what concepts, or what downs, and what situations? how do we defend you now? Like when you come in as a rookie and you start lighting them up, they don't like that stuff. But it's like we can't adapt to it as quickly during the season because we got to worry about the next game and then the next opponent. I expect defenses to, okay, this is how you want to run this, Sean Payton. This is how you and Bo Nix get down. Say less. We got something for that. You need to continue to put pieces around him to where now you can counter their counter. And I think Ashton Jeanty, Mason Taylor, first and second round combination. Oh, that's a counter punch if I've ever seen one, Keith. That's a body blow that might listen. I'll tell you right now, if they made a splash move like that, Keith, with that defense, and they don't have. We talked about Drew Sanders. They don't have Drew Sanders. We talked about him on yesterday's show with the linebackers. Drew Sanders got hurt, I think, in the training camp. So I don't believe he's even playing this shit. That defense has been legit, even with one of their better young playmakers on the second level. Talking about getting him back into this defense. A healthy Riley Moss in this defense for another year. Pat Surtain, like this defense can go to a different height. And you think about for Denver, all right, Kansas City, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we're in the spot to punch you in the face and make this a street. Let's make this a street fight. Like we're talented enough and we trust our quarterback enough, right? So I think that'll be a great situation for him. The other one is the Houston Texans, right? If you're CJ Stroud, don't get me wrong. There's no shot to Dalton Schultz, but to me, Dalton Schultz he's just a guy. Like he's a good, solid player. He's gonna run block. He's gonna be at the spots he needs to be. But there's not much else to his game to where you're like, okay, he can take it a different level. Well, I look at Mason Taylor, and I think if you're CJ Stroud, you're like, all right, I got Nico Collins, I got Tank Dell, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson. I got receivers. Now we got to get the run game going a little bit more consistently again. I don't have a game changer tight end. Mason Taylor in this offense with Bobby Slowick, CJ Stroud, it's a situation where you put him in Dalton Schultz role, but he's going to give you much more athleticism, run after catch ability, ball skills. He can absolutely man between the hashes and up the seams while also detaching from the line of scrimmage and playing like a big slot receiver. I just think that like those are two situations where, again, he may not be a first round pick, but they get one of those teams, get him in the second round. You're smiling ear to ear in that war room because you're like, we just got us one.
Yep, I agree with DP. Let's wrap this thing up. What are we going to wrap it up with? Shamar Stewart, right? The hybrid interior defensive line edge rusher, do it all type of guy, right? That Texas A&M rolls out every single year for us to try to figure out where to place these guys. But an exciting football player. Let's talk about Shamar Stewart, whether we're buying or selling him entering the 2025 NFL draft. Talk about that coming up next.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch or an urge in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. To get in on the action, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet again. You'll get started with $150 back in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Guys, to get in on the action, once again, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Never waste a hunch and make every single moment more with FanDuel, and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Start for being our everydayers. Keith, buy or sell Shamar Stewart, 6'6", 290 pounds. And as you said a couple times, Keith, they have a type. The Marvin Leal, like they just have a type of these guys
Nick
that just
Nick
Skouerton, like
Shamar Turner, right? You got Shamar
it's
Turner.
It's like they press
Shamar
copy
Stewart.
and paste.
Yeah,
like they just place copy and paste over and over again. Shamar Stewart, 6'6", 290, Keith. On the season this year, 2 sacks, 3 QB hits, 25 pressures, pass rush win rate of 9.3 overall. But on true dropback sets, this for people like you say, oh man, he's got DP, Keith, he's only got 2 sacks. I will say this. On true dropback sets, his pass rush win rate goes up to a 16.7. And those 2 sacks that he has came when he was just allowed to just rush the passer. Keith, are you buying or are you selling that Shamar Stewart should have entered the 2025 NFL draft? And really, like, because I think with the production, some people are going to look at the just box score and like, is this I think our guy Peter Bukowski tweeted this out. He quote tweeted someone when they talked about his stats. He said, well, so he's a Green Bay Packer then. Like, you know what I mean? He doesn't have all the sacks and everything, but he's got the tools and the frame and the athleticism to develop. Sounds like a Green Bay Packer edge rusher. And I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. Like, you guys have a type yourselves, and this is your type. Yeah,
DP, I'm buying, and what I'm saying is I hope so, right? Like, remember Kodak Black said that when on the Breakfast Club, right? That's what I'm saying. I hope so. And then the reason I'm saying that is because I'm looking at it, and Texas A&M, they're creeping up with Georgia, DP, as far as making the evaluation process a lot more difficult than what it needs to be, right? Can you put these guys in one position, in one situation, let them develop, let us figure it out, right? But they're right there with Georgia as far as what are we doing with these guys, right? And at some point, moving them around so much, I feel like you're kind of taking away from certain elements of them, right? To be able to have turn the corner for themselves mentally, talking about the players, right? Being able to turn the corner. But I'm going to buy in this. So I'm going to go with a little bit of my experience at LSU, right? This is a guy, you said he was 6'5", 290 at this point, right? Out of high school, DP, I think he was ranked at one point the number 1 edge rusher in high school, right? So you're talking about long, lengthy, athletic, Shamar Turner was the defensive tackle, right, out of DeSoto, and him and Byron Murphy was on the same high school defensive line. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I know. Like, talking about wrecking shop, right? They were on the same high school defensive line, lining up right next to each other, which is insane. But with Shamar Stewart, he was more of the edge rusher guy, right? Like, lined up on the outside, play more true DN, hand in the ground. So I think there is upside, and you talked about it from the statistics point, right? With the true drop back sets and things like that and pass rush opportunities, you see the numbers spike, and that's because I think he's truly an edge rusher. I just think that they move him around so much, and we know with this Texas A&M defensive line, they can line up anywhere from zero tech, right, line up head up over the center, to playing stand up, mugging in an 8 gap, to playing edge rusher. It's like, try to find them, right? And then you look at the body types and you're trying to figure out, okay, Nick Scowerton, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, and you watching film and you're like, okay, who is who, right? Like, what are we doing at this point? So, I'm buying in on him, and I'm buying in on him at a top 60 prospect. I think there's a lot there to uncover.
No, 100%. And to your point, Keith, I'm gonna give you his D-line alignment snap count. Over his career, 3 years, he has 897 snaps outside the tackle, 300 snaps over the tackle, 46 snaps in the B gap, and 8 snaps in the A gap. So they move him around a good, decent amount over his career. And it's just like you said, it muddies the development, it muddies the projection, the like draft projection, because now you're truly projecting. You're like, okay, he's got everything.
I don't like living. I don't like living in that area. You know me, right? I'm always like, I got to see you do it, right? But what do I do with this situation, right?
And that's the tough part, but that's what happens with a lot of these schools, man. Like, this is what works for us. This is how we can be most successful at the school. So not knocking the college coaches for doing what's going to help them, but it's like, man, when it comes down to these kids declaring, it muddied up some things, and we don't know how to really value him as a prospect. But I do think that he's a potential top 60, potential top 50 guy, because again, with his physical profile, and like you said, the look at the numbers when he's allowed to pin his ears back. And I just feel like, okay, looking at his body type, even from the picture, Keith, like you watch him on film, he's not like even though he's listed at 290, he doesn't have a lot of weight around the midsection. His core, he's slim in the core, long arms, he's well defined. And I'm like, you know what? This guy might, like you say, it might be a true edge rusher where you can rush him in this 2-point stance, rush him from a 3-point stance, wide 9 him, and give him some 4-point stance opportunities, and let him fire off. And you want to get him on the island against tackles and just let him figure it out, throughout the game, man. And I just think that with that type of a skill set, I'm buying as well. I'm buying it's tough. I'm still buying, but I'm just like, all right. It's got to me. I think he's got to be a guy that goes to the right defensive coordinator that's just going to let him flourish. Like I mean, let's be honest, Keith. I would say probably 90% of draft prospects. People don't like to hear this. 90% of draft prospects are team and scheme fits. Like it's very rare that you got guys who are scheme transcendent. Like it's very rare that you have that. So I look at Shamar Stewart and I just say I'm buying in on him, going to the draft. So people are like, dang, you guys ain't sold nobody. No, I think all these guys are fine to go to the draft. Just understand there's some buyer beware.
You better know what you're getting. Some of this stuff, DP, you might have to wake up in the morning and go work out, right? We're not saying that this is the highest quality stuff, right? So
you ever bought something that had the warning label? Like, hey, so these are the things you need to worry about when you draft these players. Like, just beware. Outside of Mason Taylor, we didn't really have much to say about there was no really buyer beware for him. We think he's a clean prospect. But with Deone Walker, with Shamar Stewart, talented guys they had the things you can't teach, the height, the arm length, the weight, all that stuff. Now it's all about where are you going and who's coaching you up from a DC standpoint and a defensive line coach standpoint. Because if you get these guys in the right situations, they could be game wreckers.
Yep, I agree with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers, guys. We got the weekend. Go ahead and enjoy your weekend. Watch some, it's like Army, Navy, right? Get us a little appetizer before the college football playoffs kick off next week. And you know what we're doing next week. We're previewing the prospects in those games that you need to watch in round one. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.